Hey, what's up? It's Kareem. I just wanted to give a little intro to the video you're about to watch. Not going to go on. I think that you should just watch the video. It's pretty interesting. Um, Chris Buck, legend in the photography community, great portrait photographer, chrisbuck.com, B-U-C-K. Um, he asked to photograph me for a project, and then we had a conversation about that photography session, and we touch on our philosophies in portrait photography, a little bit about our careers, model photographer relations, that sort of thing. um, I thought it might be an interesting listen, so I wanted to share. This is not a podcast, just a conversation between two portrait photographers that respect each other. um, and I hope you enjoy. Let me know what you think in the comments. Thank you. You ready? I don't have too
We're
many.
self-investigating. We're investigating each other and holding each other accountable.
Oh yeah, yeah, of course. I mean, trust but verify, that kind of thing.
Whoa! I just said that last week.
Under
Did I,
what context?
did I say it to you? No. What was it about? I forget what. Oh, you know what it was? It was a former intern of mine was going to be getting a job, and she was like, "Oh, these are really good people." I'm like, "Absolutely. That's why you also get a contract because you trust then verify."
Oh yeah.
Like, great. I'm glad you're working with good people. Now get it in writing.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the first rule of Photo Club. So I figured I guess we could say that you invited me to shoot, but I invited you to this conversation, I would imagine, right? I think that
Yes, that's a fair take.
that's pretty fair. I figured that we could do the Chris Buck retrospective in another conversation. I think that right now I just wanted to talk about the shoot. Like, it was a super interesting experience for me. I definitely belong behind the camera. I am It's a new life experience being in front of the camera. I just wanted to talk to you about your experience. Was it a Chris Buck shoot? I did actually. You know what? You're Chris. Who are you? You're Chris Buck. For if
Hello.
there's anybody watching that doesn't know, I'm Kareem
Okay,
Black.
I'm
You're
Chris
Chris
Buck.
Buck.
I
Who's
am a
Chris Buck?
okay. All right, so let's first go with this. Let's we should kind of have a little introductory thing of how we know each other, and then here's the thing: we're both portrait photographers. We've both been doing it for decades, and I've always enjoyed photographing photographers. I photographed and interviewed Arnold Newman and Anton Corbin and Marilyn Mark very early in my career. So I really got that early start being interested in other photographers. And as I've moved through my career, I've had the opportunity to photograph photographers along the way. I've photographed a lot of like really super iconic people like Cindy Sherman and Sally Mann, Robert Frank, and yet I also have not photographed very many. Like I've only maybe photographed 20 photographers, but I've just happened to photograph a lot of the big sort of important people. And so going down that list, I came to you pretty fast. So I had to get you in there.
Why? Why do you photograph photographers? Are they different than other subjects you have?
I mean, I kind of follow the model of people like, Irving Penn and Arnold Newman were my, kind of photographic heroes. And I want to have a career like them, which was photographing a wide swath of people in different, different vocations and, trying to do my thing with them. And, I thought it was really exciting just to look through, the kind of, the way they photograph like musicians and writers and politicians and always have their viewpoint, but still bring in the color and excitement of the backstories of all the subjects. And I want to have that kind of career. I started off shooting music. That was what I did initially, indie rock bands, and then later hip hop and, country and whatever came up. But then I quickly pivoted to photographing movie people and politicians and writers and such, and was really excited about all aspects of culture. So even though initially it was all about music, I was really excited to go into other spaces as well.
Are you a
Um,
musician?
Excuse me.
Are you a musician?
I'm a unsuccessful failed musician. Initially, I was really big into music. Like when I was in college, I worked on a music paper and I managed a band and did all kinds of things in the music world. Even put out like cassettes of local and international bands when I was in college. But I, if I was going to be in music, I would have been on the business side on the production or business side, and I really want to be a creative myself, and that was my natural inclination. So I pivoted away from that, and photography was something that I was good at. Like visual astuteness was always a strength I had. So combining my interest in pop culture with my aptitude for visual art,
Sure.
photography of pop culture figures became my thing.
Sure.
Now it was like all in. Like when I was in college, like a lot of my peers were like, I don't get it. You seem to have some talent. Why are you wasting your time
But
photographing
this
musicians?
is this is the point that I'm trying to get to. Like, you're 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 not a musician, but you are a photographer. I'm wondering if there, but you have photographed a lot of musicians. I'm wondering if there's a difference between photographing a musician or a politician or a photographer. You are a photographer.
Well,
You're not either of the rest of those things,
yeah, but
right?
but when I go to photograph people, I do like I'm aware of the tropes of each like genre, like the author photo, the politician picture, the musician, spread. Like you kind of know the tropes of each one, and you kind of like work to kind of add something new or to pull things from the past, some kind of mix. But at the same time, I'd rather photograph everyone. Like my ideal is to photograph everyone the same in the sense like that I want to, I remember saying to GQ, they're always hiring me to photograph comedians because they thought of my pictures as funny. I'm like, hire me to shoot politicians. I don't make funny pictures of politicians for you. Like, so I like to kind of, approach each person the same way in a way. So like, I wouldn't photograph you any differently than I photograph a musician or a politician, right?
Oh, that's interesting. That's interesting because of this whole project that you photographed me for was about sort of trying to embody someone else, right?
Yes,
To
yes.
photograph as someone else. But, you just said that you try to approach everyone similarly if they're a musician, politician,
Right. But
or whatnot.
as you know, like it's always a struggle, and you're always trying to get better and trying to like refine and perfect what you do. And you know the that assignment, so I run a meetup group once a month, and I
Yeah,
give out
tell us about the
assignments to the group.
assignment. Yeah.
And so the assignment was to create an alter ego, a persona, and shoot as that person instead of yourself. And the goal of that is to kind of free you from the constraints, the self-imposed constraints, or even the societal constraints of who you are and what you've already made, right? Breaking away from your existing body of work or your reputation or what is expected of me as a middle-aged white man from Canada. What is expected of me? Can I flip that and open some portals in my own brain, aesthetically or whatever, in the images by inhabiting another persona?
Here's a question. Is this so the meetup that you do every week, are you trying to inhabit a different
No, no,
person,
every
or
every
this was just this specific assignment?
it's specific assignment.
Got it.
A lot of the assignments are around trying to remove mental obstacles. I think that's a huge part of my teaching practice is that people feel inhibited and they need to kind of get well one, it's just encouraging someone to go out and shoot a specific shoot that's creative and dynamic every month. That's one part of it. But the other part is really trying to remove these sort of mental obstacles that I think the biggest challenge with portraiture, which I think hopefully you'll agree, or maybe not, I think is dealing with the person in front of you. That the great portrait photographers find a way to make work that is exciting, engaging, and rich and deep. That it, in some sense, sort of has to manage the emotions and the expectations of the subject in a way that doesn't let that interfere too much with the creative process. That you need to make something interesting for the audience or your client or yourself or whatever that isn't too much driven by the expectations of the subject, because the subjects just want to look like young and cool and beautiful and and thin. Like they're not looking for a deep engaging picture that's exciting for the audience. They're looking to like look good,
And you
which I get.
think and
Like
you
I'm
think
the same
it's
way.
and you think it's the photographer's job as if they them looking good is not your it's not your job. It's not what you're trying to do.
I think it's an element. it's part of it. Like I think if people look bad, it's distracting and not helpful. But
I
so
mean,
it's not
bad
like
and
I'm
good
saying
is objective. I mean, it's
it's not like
subjective.
well, it's not like I'm saying go out there and make like horrible, unflattering pictures. I'm saying make make the goal to make an interesting, rich photograph for the audience that they can see something of themselves, of human experience or whatever through this image, and not like making sure the subject thinks they look good because subjects have sometimes reasonable and sometimes quite unreasonable
Sure,
expectations of what it would look like. And
sure.
so, if you let the subject choose, they're going to choose something that's akin to a selfie, like a high angle camera where they look
Yeah.
great and they look really beautiful and thin and all this. And that's not really an interesting picture,
You know what? Sometimes, yeah, everybody's got a different technique, and this was what was interesting about you shooting me was watching your technique. I think that part of my technique is going through the stage of having the subject think that they look good in the way that they do, and then traveling from that. Like,
Yeah,
okay, we've established some trust now. How
yeah,
about we try this? How about we
yeah,
try this thing? And eventually, you or definitely me, they might end up, on the floor of an alley or something once we've established, trust. And I think that that's sort of a process that might take multiple steps. But
sure.
but obviously, as a professional photographer, sometimes you don't have time to do a 4 or 5 step thing. Like, you got 5 minutes to shoot this person. You know.
Well, I'm really glad to hear that because I think maybe my steps are different, but I'm doing the same process. I don't think it's an accident that my favorite picture from our session together is one made at the very end, the one right after I had you lying in the dirt of the alley. Like, I think there's something about doing stuff like that that kind of breaks down some of the inhibition of both the
Sure.
subject and the photographer. That
Sure.
we've been through this kind of like crazy adventure together, and now we're on the other side, and now we can kind of do some kind of more nuanced version of it. It's almost like part of my practice is definitely like the let's go too far so we know how far we can land. Like
Sure.
I always want to kind of
You're a pusher.
well, I mean, one of the things I often say too is like be like go bold, then simplify. And so I think of if you look a lot of my best pictures, it really is like it's an interesting idea that's a little out of left field, but then it's presented in a kind of low key way. And so I think that it's that's often what I'm doing is I'm kind of doing the kind of wacky shot and then taking out the weirder elements or kind of taking it down a notch or two and then letting it settle into somewhere that feels more organic or real, but you still have the edge or you still have the playfulness or whatever it is that we kind of that process brought us to.
Sure. I mean, I think, see, it's interesting. You telling me about your process, and I'm recalling the shoot that we did. You're talking to me about a Chris Buck process, but the shoot that we did, were you can you explain sort of the overall scope of the project, but this
Sure.
particular, what were you who were you trying to be on this shoot? You were not
Absolutely.
trying to be Chris Buck on this shoot.
Right. So it's funny because I give these assignments and then I do them myself, partially out of like just kind of respect for the group and like camaraderie, but partially in a real way, like me doing the assignment, I'm forced to like walk in your shoes as a member of my group. Like I'm walking the same path as the group is.
Sure.
And so because I'm doing the assignment and I need to deliver because I'm running the group, I can't deliver like just okay pictures. My pictures need to be good or great because I'm the leader of the group.
Yeah,
I
I
need to
mean,
justify.
what the hell are they paying for other than this? You come, yeah,
so so yeah, my persona was to be a middle-aged black man who works at a company, kind of a company man, but who's also creative and is into photography, and he's using the camera to make photographs of some of his peers. So he wants to photograph some of the other black men who work at his company or maybe in similar jobs. And that was the idea of this was to like photograph one of my black friends or acquaintances or whatever, and but in the persona of being like a middle-aged black man who is looking for a creative outlet.
Yeah, I can relate to that. I can relate to that persona. Do you think that you were successful?
Well, so, so when so what the images I was imagining were kind of medium format, like Hasselblad or like Rolly type pictures. And I for some reason I think I was channeling kind of like mid 20th century, kind of vibe. So it was, maybe black and white, or it could be color, but they're kind of more nostalgic looking,
Black and white ones a lot.
maybe more like it kind of like, or like, ironically, when I think back, it's kind of more like Diane Arbus's portraits that were more her low key stuff, where those like medium format with a slightly wider lens, where there be like a lower angle, kind of just someone like kind of being living in space. And
Mm,
so that's kind of what I was channeling a bit. But once we started doing that, we were shooting on your fire escape, and I think there's some nice moments there. I asked you to wear a suit, maybe partially because I was kind of doing this mid 20th century vibe.
sure.
Maybe a nod to the fact that we were maybe co-workers, or maybe worked in adjacent offices or something, so we kind of knew each other in suits. And so that was what I was doing. But being in a confined space like a fire escape is really challenging. And the light was good, but it was also like certain angles. It was very high contrast, and I had to play with that. And
Sure.
so I very quickly I moved out of being this persona I created into being like, okay, I just need to solve this problem. I'm not now I'm in my own head, and I'm just needing to like solve the problem. And also the pictures were looking good, but they weren't really there yet. And now I'm having to tap into just everything in me to like try to move from good to very good and maybe great if I can get there. And I just had to dig deeper and just be more, I don't know,
More
more
Chris Buck?
elastic. More, well, that's it. And I have to go with what I have. And as you know, as a shooter, like, you need to make your best work, you need to dig deep, and you need to like just you need
Sure.
to pull at all the stops and try everything to
You
see what
know,
works.
so I've done shoots, and I'm sure you've done shoots before where, you come in with a battle plan, and what's the saying? Like, no plan survives the first shot of the enemy or something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah.
And then I've got tricks. I've been shooting for 25 years. You've been shooting probably a little bit longer than me, and so we go back into our bag of tricks, and all of a sudden it's a Kareem Black shoot. Okay, cool. Maybe this thing, maybe this concept that we did this call about and
Yeah.
had this PDF about, maybe it's not working out, but I've got these tricks that I know that are tried and true. Did you
Yeah.
find that happening on this shoot?
Absolutely. Like, and
I mean, you didn't feel black. Do you feel black on this shoot or little black? I'm fucking with you. I'm fucking with you.
it's all good. Look, the fact is that like I've got a number of like black male friends, and so you know, I mean, I'm as insecure about like racial stuff as most white people are in our age, but I have black friends I hang out with that I don't really make a show of. So it's not really like a big deal that I have black friends.
Sure.
So it's, but when you're trying to inhabit someone else, no matter who it is, even if it was another white man who's from Canada, it'd still be like I'd hit a wall pretty fast. Because, and obviously on some level is my imagination, right? Like,
I mean,
and
you
I'm not
you
going
are
to
who
try
you
to.
are. Like you're. I mean,
Well,
which is a fucking great photographer.
oh,
Like
thanks.
that's, and I don't think that there's anything wrong with that. And please understand, like I'm really I'm interested in your take on it. I think it's a ballsy project, and I think that you're known for ballsy, like bold and weird and quirky work, which is what brought me to it. And I'm like, you know what? Let's see how this plays out, And that's
Yeah,
why I was interested, like, if you thought it was successful or not. Like, I thought the pictures were great. But as far as the
yeah,
project, I'm wondering if
yeah.
you thought it was
Well,
successful.
I quickly just turned back into myself because I need to pull out any resources I had to like get a good shot. I will say, like, I think any effective or most effective portraits are a collaboration in the end.
Exactly.
Like, my mental approach to portraits is pretty aggressive, and like kind of driven by my own like vision or whatever. I don't go in with a collaborative mindset, but in the end, I do think my best pictures, and I think it's true of most portraits, you see the photographer and you see the
Right.
subject. And when
That's
you
an
don't,
interesting thing to say. You don't go in with a collaborative mindset. I could, being photographed by Chris Buck is super interesting.
well,
This is something that I have over you. You've never
yeah,
been photographed by Chris Buck. I mean, maybe. I mean, you probably have, but it's interesting being on the other end of that
yeah,
sort of. I feel like I probably know your work better than a random,
sure,
let's say, band or whatever that you
yeah,
photograph. And I'm like, okay, cool. How's this going to happen? And hearing you say that you don't go in with a collaborative mindset, I just think it's an interesting approach. I don't say it's right or wrong. And I hear
yeah,
you. I think that we definitely have different steps of getting to, okay, cool, this is what I want. I think that I might be a little bit more collaborative seeming at first.
yeah,
And then we sort of start to push and
yeah,
get weird, you
yeah.
know?
I mean, the reason why I have that mentality is it's so difficult to see past the 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 kind of wants and needs of the subject. I need to kind of overcompensate in my mind and go in with an attitude of this is it. This is what we're doing today.
Right,
I don't care what you think. I don't care if you hate me after this.
right.
I don't care if you hate the pictures. We're going for it. We're doing this today, and I'm going to get you on board one way or another.
You
If
said,
I don't,
go
because if
on,
I don't
please.
do that, like I'm a nice, polite Canadian guy. If I don't have that mindset, I'm not going to ask for what I want. I'm not going to get
Right.
anything interesting, and I'm going to go away with a lot of regret. And one of the things I've found is that when I do go in with like a sense of a mission and a plan, and I ask people for both things, most of the time people are really excited and they love the adventure and they love the experience, and the pictures aren't necessarily what they expected or even like would have asked for, but they often love them and they're like, this is so cool,
Right.
this is a different take that
Right.
I wouldn't have
Yeah,
like.
I was outside my comfort zone. I mean, this is something that I've heard, in pertaining to shoots that I've done.
Sure.
Hey, I was outside my comfort zone. Thank you for pushing, and
Yes.
so on and so forth. I think that that's, I think that's super interesting. You said something very cool on the shoot that I'm totally going to steal. You said, "Yeah, I don't want you to be comfortable. Like to be clear, I want you to be uncomfortable." It was very sort of it's very Chris Buck and very. It wasn't as adversarial as it sounded.
Yeah.
Like I totally get it.
Yeah.
I totally get it's pushing a button. I totally get it is acknowledging that I'm not comfortable, but
Right.
by doing that, it's sort of made me more comfortable that that I'm uncomfortable, kind of thing.
Yes.
I think the psychology of a photo shoot is super interesting.
You're in a way like hearing you talk about it. I think you're right. It's acknowledging, like, hey, I'm pushing you into an uncomfortable space, but it's also, it's kind of, it's sort of saying we're doing this thing together where we're having this kind of weird experience. Like, I'm acknowledging that this is counterintuitive and that, but like, bear with me. The process has
Right.
value.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think that that's some of the. I think it was Avedon. I was watching an interview. I want to say it's Avedon, and he had an interesting thing to say about control and how photographers control their subjects just by being in front of a camera
Yeah.
and being aware that you're in front of a camera. The person behind the camera, in some ways, has control. They have control over the image, the lens,
Yeah.
sort of telling you to do things. And
Yeah.
you are in sort of a submissive position because you don't know. You don't
Yeah.
understand what's going on through that lens. So there's an element of trust, but also sort of the person who's making the pictures is not you. The person who's controlling the image is not the subject.
Yeah.
Um, that was an interesting sensation on our shoot.
But tell me
And
about like what. So what was your like? What was your? Because there's multiple times during the shoot you were like, This is really interesting. This is really interesting.
Right.
And so what was your feeling? What were your feelings as we are doing the
Right.
different setups?
No, so yeah, I'm a chess player, and the great thing about chess is that it's not like poker. Like in poker, you have hidden cards, that your opponents can't see. On the chessboard, you can see everything, and you can see what your opponent's doing, and opponent can see what you're doing. And at the end of the day, it's about who sort of plays better chess. As a photographer, I was watching you, and I know some of what you're doing. I'm I know that I know more than most of your subjects
Sure.
about what you're trying to do. At the same time, I've had really rough subjects, and I'm trying to be a good subject,
Yeah.
you know?
Mhm.
So
You are
I,
great, by the way. Like, because you expressed some misgivings or like whatever, like discomfort in front of the camera, but you were you looked great. You're really cooperative. You bitched about a couple things, but in ways that were reasonable. And you
is that
also you
necessary?
you
Bitched about
you
it?
did like you
My mom's
complained, but
gonna
you still
watch
did it,
this.
which is awesome. Like you can, I don't care. You can complain all you want about wearing a suit or whatever, or lying in the
Did
filth.
I complain about wearing a suit? Let's not do this. Like, this is gonna be on YouTube. I didn't complain. I like wearing a suit. Come on. Yeah, what I did here, it's interesting. I was talking to Emily Scher. She was in town when we shot, and I'm like, Chris Buck just photographed me, and he photographed me like lying on the floor of like an alley. And I told her, I was like, I told Chris, I don't know if I'm gonna do that. And then I thought about all of the countless times that I had asked people to do sort of ridiculous and possibly unhygienic shit. And I'm like, you know what? Okay, cool. Like, let's take this leap of faith. This, I trust you as a photographer. I know you less as a human, but as a photographer, yeah, let's make. At that point, it was a Chris Buck photo. I'm like, let's make a Chris Buck photo. And that was sort of my goal as an I just don't do this a lot,
Yeah.
you know. So I thought it was interesting on that level, and I did like the shot. I get a sense that particular shot, was not your favorite.
It was worth trying. Like it could have looked amazing.
Yeah, no, I,
I
I
mean,
like it a
it's
lot.
something I do almost on every shoot. And I try to get people to lie on the ground or lie on a chair or lie on a table or whatever. So getting people to lie down is really good because you don't see it a ton in pictures,
Yeah, I saw that picture of
especially
Matt
portraits.
Salkew's. Yeah,
You might see it in fashion, but fashion people look so beautiful doing anything that it's almost kind of like feels like it's cheating, you know.
sure.
But
Yeah. No, there's no challenge in making a really hot person look really hot.
so how did you feel being on the other side of the camera? Like, what was your like? What was not while no not while we were doing it, but like, what were your takeaways of like that were actually like useful to you?
As far as technique, I was interested always in how photographers, as sort of conductors of a shoot, manage that set space, how they keep things moving, how they keep things fun, how they keep things interesting, the little conversations that we have with the subjects when honestly 80% of our brain is probably not on that conversation. We're not
Yeah,
concentrating on what we're talking about. We're thinking about
yeah.
light, we're thinking about sort of ratios. I liked watching you do what you do. I realized I I realized what you were doing at certain points, and I tried to excise that from my brain. I tried to, because that would affect how I'm like, all right, Chris is chasing the light here. Maybe I can help out in this way, be it equipment, or maybe I can move in this direction. But while I know what you're trying to do, I don't know the entirety of what you're trying to do. So if I try to, we've all had those subjects where it's like, oh, well, let me be helpful by doing this. And it's like, shut the fuck up. Please stay right here.
Yeah,
I'm trying to work other things out that you
yeah,
don't know about.
yeah.
I'm not verbalizing this. And so I tried to, I tried to listen to what you said. I tried to do what you said I mean, Jesus Christ, I'm about to be 48, so like some of those poses were, it's like It was kind of difficult to keep. But I was trying to be a dream subject as far as what I would want.
Yes.
You know.
Well, you did a fine job.
Well, thank
Um,
you.
no, really, you were great, and also the mix, like changing your wardrobe, actually was really good. Like I was open to it because, in a way, having you wear this. One of the things with this suit is that I've been kind of thinking about like wardrobe and costume a lot in the last year or so, where like my default position is to just have people wear like like charcoal gray or black, like just so it sort of just frames the face and removes wardrobe from being in the equation. Because oftentimes wardrobe is, if you just let people wear what they're going to wear, it's distracting from the picture and it confuses the narrative or it's visually distracting. So usually I just say wear the black,
That's
wear the
interesting.
black or the charcoal gray or the whatever, like a button down shirt that looks nice, it looks good, but I've been kind of
Wait,
elevated.
here's a question. If I could just jump in, so you never want to you always opt towards something plain, something charcoal or black. I think just like an environmental portrait, you're taking a picture of someone's being, but you're also taking a picture of their environment, which
Yeah,
says something about them. I think that
right,
sometimes clothes can also say something about the
right.
sitter.
But
No.
for me, it's either it's simple or it's a showpiece. So if you look through my work, occasionally you'll find a shot where it really is all about the wardrobe. It's really a unique piece. Like I recently shot with the author Mark Manson. I think I told you about that when we met up.
Right, in LA, right?
Yeah, and one of the things I asked for was like, hey, do you have anything just kind of like over the top, costumey? And he's like, I have a suit, but it's kind of just a nice suit. And then he came back to me. He's like, oh, I've got this like fur stole thing that is my wife's, and it was like a black fur thing, and we just wore that. We had him wear that without a shirt on, and it looked awesome.
Right.
And it was almost kind of
Yeah,
like
I saw a
it was
few
like
of those
half
pictures you
wardrobe,
showed
half
me.
prop. Yeah, and we had him like wrap it around his head at some point. Like it looked amazing. And so either I want the wardrobe to be like the shot or to disappear.
Right. And in that situation, the wardrobe was the shot.
Yeah. But with you wearing the suit, it's actually like a nice sort of almost like a middle ground because it does make something of a statement of character and of like context,
Sure.
but it's also like sort of sort of understood like as a contextual thing enough that it doesn't add a lot of narrative. Like it's a well-fitting suit. Like that's it. That's all it is. Like it also I like the aspect of like acknowledging that we're doing a photograph. I think there's something about people will be I'll be like, oh, wear this. And they're like, I never wear that. Like I guess I'd wear that if I was meeting my mother-in-law, I'd wear that shirt. I'm like, yeah, but it's a nice shirt. You look good. It just elevates it slightly. Like I don't want you wearing a T-shirt of your favorite band or like your local football team. Like that's distracting. I don't want those words. I hate words. Because they start off shooting a lot of bands. They're always wearing shirts of other bands that they're friends with. Like half the shots people are wearing Sonic Youth T-shirts and shit. Like
Right.
in the 80s, and so it's like um I just would be like having people. I don't want words. I don't want a lot of context because then the picture becomes about the shirt you're wearing, and we read your shirt, and whatever it says in your shirt becomes the narrative of the picture. And so I'm really aware of all these elements that speak to what the picture is about.
Yeah, I have a different take on that, but I think that we all, I mean, I think that that's what makes us all unique.
Yeah, 100%.
I Yeah, no, I see logic in what you're saying, totally. But for me, it's sort of on a case by case basis. I think that the image that we did, especially in the alley, I think it's strong enough to survive a shirt with a band logo.
Well, you're not wearing a band logo on that shirt.
Right. No, well, I'm not. But
Yeah,
I think the shot is
no,
strong enough and interesting
I
enough
totally disagree. If
to.
you're wearing, because you know what it is, it would have made it look like. Here's the thing too, like we're colleagues and we're friends. So it would have looked like we were hanging out and like, you know, talking business and having a beer. And I'm like, hey, that's a nice shot. Let me grab that. And I shot it with my phone.
Mm,
By having you wearing elevated clothing, no one's going to look at the picture, the picture of you with your hand out in your
sure.
hands in the light.
Great shot.
No one's going to look at that and be like, Chris and Kareem are having a beer and he took that picture. It
Right.
wasn't like you were sitting there wearing a suit, in your apartment. And I was like, hey, stand up. The light's nice. And I took a picture. Like, that's not that. That's clearly not what happened. I do think there's something about creating an image that's separated from real life. Like, I like it anchored in real life enough that it feels like in a way, like, to me the magic comes from being 1 foot on the ground and 1 foot like in some kind of magical space. So if it's too grounded, then it's not really that interesting. It needs to be a little bit of sparkle of magic. And I think that having people sort of looking too much like everyday life is not that interesting.
I agree with that. You said something interesting. I think it was before we shot. I don't know. I guess I just saw Emily. So there's another conversation
Sure.
that we had about Emily. And you're like, oh, well, you dated Emily. How you said something like, oh God, like dating another photographer or being like, is that something that like what should photographers' relationships be towards each other? Like I was wondering what you were getting at with that.
Oh, well, I mean, the thing about being friends with people in the same field is really valuable. Like, here's the thing. Look, you're you're one of the most ambitious photographers I know. Like, you're at the grind, decades in, and I can barely make time with you because you're such a hustler. And that's one of the reasons I respect you. And so to have that and be in a relationship with someone who has a similar like intensity and like drive, that's a lot for two people in the same space. For us to be friends and share information, like, look, we're both competitors and friends. At some point I made a decision that I was going to be supportive and friendly with people in my field, because at one point I didn't feel that way. I was more, it wasn't like I was anti with other photographers, but it certainly wasn't. I certainly didn't look for friendships with photographers early in my career.
That's interesting. That's interesting because when I came into being a professional photographer, I graduated SVA in 2000 and got really lucky and started shooting right away. .com economy, like it's a whole thing, the bubble. And I feel like when I got into photography a little bit after you did, everyone, I don't think that photographer friendships, photographer relationships were as sort of accepted. I think that the way that I felt, at least, were that, in an industry of a bunch of freelancers, most of these guys, and mostly guys, but later guys and girls, are my enemy. Like this is you're
Yes,
not sharing lighting with them and all
sure.
this.
But
That's
that's part
that's
of
the
being young.
vibe that I got from the industry.
That's
But
more about being young, I think.
but
That's more about, and I think you need to set your path.
well,
You
it
think
wasn't something that I ever believed in. Like
yeah,
but it was the vibe that I got from the industry. And then obviously
right,
I met Matt Salacuse and Emily and Michael Schmelly and like all these people. And right
yeah,
now, like most of my best friends are, if not photographers, artists. And I
yeah.
think that I benefit greatly from that.
I
You
totally agree.
know,
Yes,
like
but but
and I
being
compete with them daily, most
but
of
yeah,
them.
but the thing is, being in a relationship with someone romantically, you're tied together financially, you're tied together emotionally, and look, I dated a couple of photographers before I got married, and you know, there would always be this sort of like, at some point there'd be this awkward conversation about like us competing for the same job
Mm,
and one of us getting it and one of us not.
it
And
happened.
I dated this one woman where we ended up being up for two jobs, like two jobs. It came up. One was an ad job and she got it, and I was happy for her. And then I got an editorial job and she was angry at me and she was like, you should have let me take the job. And I'm like, it's a second rate editorial job. What do you care? And she was like, you're Chris Buck, you can get any job you want. And I'm like, that's not how it works. Like, I'm still hustling out here for work just like you are. Like, and this became a problem, one, because I was inevitably dating women who are a little younger, and so I was further along in my career. So I wasn't allowed to complain about having a bad week or bad month or whatever, because I was Chris Buck. And so that was no fun for me to have no outlet to be like frustrated. You know, that's no fun. That's not cool.
That's interesting. I can't really relate to that. I mean, I hear you. I mean, I think that
Yeah.
we're all hyper competitive. I think that what we do is fucking fun and awesome, and there's the best job in the world. And I feel like if everybody could do it, everybody would. I get it. I do think that long term, look, I haven't been in, you've probably been in more photographer on photographer relationships than I have as far as romantically, but I definitely value when I was in one, but I also value sort of just having friends out there that I can bounce ideas off of. Look, they get the job, they buy the dinner, you know what I mean, and vice versa. I think that we all sort of make each other better as
Yeah,
long as we do not succumb to, I mean, we're all sort of predators, really. Like, we're all like
totally.
hyper competitive. As long as we don't succumb to this person is now my enemy
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Well, I think just a couple of things. One is that for the most part, like when people ask me, like, how do you get work? The answer is that like the marketplace really chooses. It's really like you can have an agent, you can promote and all that. And then that does move the dial for sure. But the main thing is if the market's interested in what you do, then they'll come to you and they'll hire you.
Sure.
And that's going to fluctuate and depending on what's going on with the industry in general, what's going on with the area you're in. But there's also an aspect of like I'm a kind of just philosophically, I'm a big believer in like rather than like fighting for my piece of the pie, I'm philosophically in the attitude of like let's make a bigger pie for everyone. Like let's have everyone be invited to this party and just make a bigger
I
pie.
don't believe you. I don't believe that you believe that. I don't believe
Why?
you.
Why not?
I don't believe that you believe that because I mean, not to say that you're not a good person. Because I think that you genuinely are, but I think that I think that we are the bigger pie. That's interesting. It's a very sort of. Do you think that everyone has a place at this table? Everyone can eat from this pie.
I'm just saying philosophically, I don't personally want to operate from a when you get a job, I've lost a job attitude.
Fair. Okay.
Okay. So what the way I approach it is if I want more work, I just need to be a better photographer. If I make better work and I make better work consistently, then I will work more. Like that
Here's a
is the only
question.
that's the only way. Like I understand market forces and all that stuff, specifically and generally. But the fact is that I do think that if it's one of the reasons why people like you and I survive is that we continue to try to get better and not really kind of just do what we've done before and keep going on that. We're trying to get better, both in terms of promotion, but also in terms of making better work. And so by pushing myself and having that attitude, I'm hoping that long term that it affects my market value and how attractive I am to potential clients. And
I see that.
but the thing about it, the thing with the pie thing is it allows me to be genuinely supportive of my colleagues and and peers. And so, sometimes, like I reached out to a client to tell her about Matt because Matt was like, oh, I'd love to shoot for so and so. And I was like, I'll email them and introduce you.
Right.
Now, I don't know if much came from it, but I was happy to do it because I think Matt's really cool and I love his work. And I'm like, it's if they hire him for a job that I might get hired for, so be it. Like I can live with that. You're like, but again, it's like that's what the philosophy of the bigger pie comes from. Is like I'm looking for more work for all of us and more creativity and more like I think it can in a general sense like elevate everyone that we all can be like like I want more better work for everyone, not a thing of like you have to get less work so I can get more.
That's beautiful. Um, I think that we all balance sort of on the head of a needle, where it's like, when I was first starting out, I was definitely hyper, like definitely much more competitive than I am now, like hyper competitive. And I wouldn't say that I was jealous of other people who got jobs that I wanted, but I was certainly aware. And I think that there is a force where it's like, I might be happy for that person, but I want that fucking job next time. You know, there are two
Yeah,
forces happening here. There's
yeah,
like, hey, that's really great, but I want to take that job from you.
yeah.
I think it's, and I think that we all sort of
Of
balance
course. Yeah,
there.
yeah, of course. And
And I'll
I think
fight you, and I'll fight you,
yeah,
not physically, but like I'll fight you in the photography arena to
right.
get this
Probably.
job within,
Yeah.
sort of legal bounds. You
No,
know,
I think being competitive, I think has real value creatively as well. I agree. Like, you know, I mean, sometimes I'll be like, when I'll go in to do a shoot and I'll be like, so and so magazine's not hiring me. I'm going to shoot a picture that's so good
right,
that I'll be undeniable to them. They'll
right.
have to hire me.
Yeah,
You
being
know,
driven. Well, like, what is that? Like, that drive is based on, it's not based on, it's not entirely based on everyone can eat from this pie. It's sort of
of
like,
course.
I
Well,
want
no,
that
yes,
piece of pie.
no, I agree. It's a balance. But the fact is that I also, I don't want to be like, why do I have to be in one column? Why can't I
Sure,
be in the column of being supportive of my peers and
absolutely.
also
Absolutely.
highly competitive,
I
you know?
completely agree with that. I completely, one of the things that was interesting about our shoot, and about just sort of hanging out with creative people that are, let's say photographers, but just, all artists sort of have their quirks that you can kind of take and apply to your own world.
100%. Yeah.
Was that it's like, okay, cool, like, you're watching me, but I'm watching you too, and watching and learning, you
So,
know
okay. So did you, I'm not saying you should have, but like I was photographed by Matt Salacuse like a few months ago, and I took specific things away from it that are now part of my practice.
right,
You know,
right,
like for example, he shot all to card and then only uploaded the images to laptop at the end. And I've done a few shoots since then where I won't shoot tethered at all, or I'll do part tethered and part not, part tethered and part not.
yeah,
And that was a direct pickup from Matt. Also, I went and bought an on-camera flash like literally like a month after I shot with him because I saw how he would integrate that, and it was a very quick way of like you throw the flash on, set the settings, and bang bang, we got a little fill
right,
light or whatever it was. And so I definitely picked up direct things from working with him
sure,
that I was impressed by. Did you? Was there anything that you saw of what we did that
yeah.
day that you thought, I'll try that?
I mean, obviously there was some technical stuff. I mean, like, shout out to Matt. I've assisted for Matt, like, within the last year, just to sort of be around that process. He's a interesting guy, and as are you. It was interesting, the LED. Like, I would not have. I was. It was interesting to see how well that turned out. I
Yeah,
would not have personally put as much trust in that, but now that I see how you used it, it's like, okay, cool, that's a viable option.
yeah. How would you describe my use of it?
I mean, I think they used it just as sort of a fill, and like a little bit of, we're shooting in spaces where there's not a lot of light,
Right.
and I think,
It was all very soft light,
right,
but it
eh,
was kind of like, yeah, it was kind of backlit a bit.
right, and I
I mean,
think
I
that
think,
you're
yeah, felt
providing
light is a good
sort
way to
of,
put it. It
you're
just,
giving some sort of shape and dimension.
yes,
I was dubious about how that was going to work, but since I've seen it, I'm like,
yeah,
okay, cool, like, that's something that can
yes.
happen.
And it's so, I mean, the value of it kind of, it's a very Salacuse like actually device in that it's super lo-fi. I literally just charge it when I charge the camera. It's the one thing I brought with me aside from a tripod. Like, I didn't even bring a laptop. Like, it was useful enough to me that I was just like, I'm going to throw this in my
Yeah.
bag.
No, the
And
other thing I took from it was sort of, I think that every shoot sort of has a rhythm, like, I mean, it has a couple different rhythms, but for instance, if you're shooting with a flash, like, there, you're telegraphing to everyone, I just took a picture.
Yeah.
When you're
Mm.
shooting on LED with an LED, it's less, it's more difficult to discern what's happening. And I think that if we're talking about like what Avedon was talking about as far as like power,
Yeah.
the power share on a shoot, I actually think shooting with an LED or something comparable takes some of the power away from the subject because you don't know exactly when the pictures are being taken.
Mm.
And I think that that's something that could add in certain situations to, just
Yeah.
how the shoot progresses,
Okay, so I'll tell you something else I do that I think is a similar thing that I just sort of did intuitively, but I've come to understand later. Hold on, just one second. I'm going to blow my nose.
We're
Is
gonna
it?
we're gonna edit this out. I'm gonna get some water. Hold on. Give me
It's
one
all good.
sec.
Take your time.
Back. All right.
No, I think it's going great. It's a good general conversation, but building it around that specific shoot, it gives us a kind of something to wrap around rather than just being like a, let's compare our stories.
And yeah, exactly. It gives us a place to come back to.
Okay,
Uh,
let me tell this thing I was
please.
going to talk about. You're talking
Actually,
about
hold
the.
on a sec. This is gonna be good for my edit. We'll start recording again. Okay, cool. Just so I know where that space happens.
That's fine. Our talking about this makes me think about another thing I do on set that at first was unconscious, but then I became kind of aware of, like a very very clear choice I was making. I rarely play music on set, even in a studio,
That's interesting.
and I think
Why?
I do that as kind of I'm trying to let things get uncomfortable. And there's a way in which music allows both subjects and the photo team to kind of like, kind of get in the groove. It kind of sets a groove, sets a like a vibe. And I don't want that. I want us to go through that awkward thing of like, hey, we don't know each other, but we're gonna do something today, and it's gonna be
I like that.
kind of look a little uneasy and difficult, but hopefully something beautiful will come out the other side. And forcing us, I'm trying to make it happen quicker in a way by not having music. It can
I
still happen, but I'm trying to kind of, in a way, force the kind of uncomfortable kind of interaction and kind of like just trying to break things
oh yeah.
down for both me and the subject and the whole space so we can get to the other side where things are a little more trusting and open and kind of
I think
just
that's
creative.
super interesting. I think that I have a technique of getting to the same place. I think that most photographers might. I do play music on set, but I haven't done this recently. But I remember there was a set I was shooting. It wasn't a celebrity, it was like a model. And I put on, I mean, something like the soundtrack to Indiana Jones or something. Like when the model came in. And I remember my assistants like, what are you doing? Like this is insane. Like we need to put on some Drake or something.
Sure.
You know, and it's like, well, no. I think that we are now in a space where I'm first of all, they don't expect this. They don't expect the Indiana Jones theme or what maybe it was the Batman with Michael Keaton, whatever. I don't know what it was. The purpose of it was to get people into my space,
Yes.
you know. And so I think that we're talking about the same thing. You're talking about not playing music. I'm talking about sometimes, I'll play music that's completely, I fucking listen to the Batman theme all the time, but maybe people don't. But it's like you're now here, you know. And I think that that's different photographers have a different way of sort of saying that and getting there, but I definitely think that music is one way or lack thereof to get people into your space. I think that, the other thing can be true also. I think that, if you are playing music that the people love, that can be a social lubricant and
Totally.
a great one,
Yes.
you know.
Yeah.
So
I
it
mean,
depends on how you want to play it.
yeah, different photographers get to great work different ways. And this is why I talked about the idea of not having a collaborator mindset. Like, I think in the end, our interactions probably aren't that different, but it's it but it in a way it's how you get over the hump of it's just it's a weird process making someone's portrait, you know,
Yes.
in a way, like it's whether you know them, like whether you know each other or not, it's just a weird process. And I think that you need to kind of go through these steps and have this process. And it's, I don't know, I think the comfort with the discomfort is so important for a portrait photographer. Like you have to kind of like a lot of times when I talk to young shooters, I'm like, why didn't you get the shot you wanted? Why isn't this more like what you know aspired to do? And they're like, I was afraid. How often do I hear
Well,
like,
we've all been there. You've been there. You're
right,
Chris
well,
Buck, but
totally.
you've been there.
Well, absolutely. And I think that you're just, and I still am afraid. Like I gotta shoot with people, and I'm genuinely afraid of them like looking at me like I'm crazy, or
Right.
like just being like, but oftentimes people will say stuff and I'll be like, we're getting you naked. We're doing it today. And they'll be like, what? You know, or I'll just say stuff like, this is going to be uncomfortable. Like, but it'll
Right.
be uncomfortable in a way that will be lead to awesome pictures. And they'll be like, oh, like they'll be like, they don't know what to say to that. Like
Right.
you're
You're
telling me it's going
getting
to be
them, yeah,
awkward.
you're
Like,
getting them
then
out
why
of
would
the
you say
comfort
that?
zone.
So
I I mean
it's saying
sometimes
the tone,
would you argue with this? Sometimes things are said by the photographers on set just to sort of get everything off balance.
Yes.
I,
But
I
like in a way, like the more we're talking about this, the more I realize what we do is really akin to like a movie director or like a producer of an album. We're trying to create a space for something really incredible and kind of like exceptional to happen. Kind of not normal, not every day. We're looking at something that is like either a performance or a kind of a moment that is unique and other kind of exceptional to happen. We're trying to create the
sure.
space where that's possible.
And that space. Okay, here's a question, and this goes along with what we're talking about. Have you ever had a muse?
Like a person who I'd come back to over and over.
Someone, yeah, you come back over and over. They inspire you. You end up making better work with this one person. The reason I ask is because muses are few and far between. I
Sure.
think I just photographed with one of my old muses, and it's like, and it was the interesting thing about it was it, and the fun thing was it was a complete collaboration where it's like,
Yeah.
but where I'm trying to go was where she was okay to go, and
Yeah.
but and vice versa. Like her ideas were absolutely amazing as well. So it's going back to sort of what we're saying. It's like we are sort of movie directors, right? We this is our idea, but sometimes it's like, whoa, this is really magical, sort of creating with this other person, and no
Yes.
longer like we're both the captain now.
Yes.
You
Oh,
know what I
totally.
mean?
Well, of course. And I think that, like, even though I've learned, and obviously you know this too, you go in there planning everything and you assume it's all on you because, you like even shooting with celebrities in my 20s, I'd be like, oh, I'm shooting with this amazing, super clever comedian. They're going to come in with all these great ideas. And of course, they come in with nothing and they're just like, what do you want to do? And I'm like, what? Oh, you have no ideas? Like,
Right.
see, you're this genius, like wit. What? Don't you have ideas? And that's kind of what it looks like. In a way, the best pictures look like they're a collaboration, right? Even when they're not. And so it's you'll learn to come in with assuming everything, but in the end, what ends up happening is the way I think of it is I come in, I deal with the circumstances on the ground of
Sure.
like the physical space and the team and all that,
Sure.
and we kind of get it all ready, and then like the 11th hour, the subject kind of gets in, they get in their zone, and then they deliver that last 10 to 15%. And that's where the shot happens, is like where they deliver that little, like, because they maybe feel comfortable or they kind of get what you're doing. And they kind of know it's not done until they step up to the plate, right? They need to hit that. I can put that ball right across the plate,
They
but
gotta hit it.
they now have to hit
They
it.
gotta hit it.
And so that's where the shot happens, right? Because in a way, like I was shooting with someone the other day, and I remember saying like, you know, the only shots that matter are the accidents. The shots that are great are things that I can't anticipate or can't set up. Like that's where the moment is like something that just genuine. Like
But
it's
that admits that you have now given up all the control. Like, I mean, not all of it,
yeah,
but
not
you're
all, but
talking about an accident. This is something
yeah,
that you didn't expect. You didn't
totally.
orchestrate it.
Yes,
I
yes,
love the happy accidents.
yeah, totally. But I think what happens, in fairness to us, we're creating the environment where that
Yes,
can happen in a way
absolutely.
because early in my career, I take really great moments, and that the background would be all chaotic or the lighting would be shit, and so the moment would genuinely be cool and interesting and alluring, but the shot's ruined because the lighting's bad, or there's a distracting background. So
I've
what?
got a funny story. Not to cut you off. Funny story. Matt Salacu's story. This actually wasn't said directly to me, but whatever. I know that Matt said it. Basically, Matt is on set with an assistant, and Matt is he's just shooting away, and the moment's happening, and the assistant saying, the light is a little off, and Matt says, I don't care. The moment's happening. I think that that's so sort of it's such a kind of a teachable moment, like I think that we can
Depends on
we
what a
we can
little
all do
off
the
means,
light.
right? Because if the light's bad, then it's a shot that's going to be diminished by it being, say, too hard or something,
I don't
right?
know. I mean, well, obviously it depends on who's looking at it and what you value, but I
Yeah,
think that the what
but
I take
but
from that
you
story is the
but for
moment.
yeah, the moment matters, but moments are ruined by bad lighting because the thing is, like,
Depends on the moment and the lighting.
if you were to pick out your like 20 best pictures in maybe you wouldn't, but for me, if I picked up my 20 best pictures, the visual and the narrative would both be working. Like that's where the bangers are, is where you have to have great music and great lyrics.
I
So the story
Right.
being told is really moving and really works, and the music is really like dynamic and exciting and really hits you emotionally deeply. So you need to have the visual and the narrative both work. And if you get a shot that where the lighting where the moment is cool and awesome and speaks, but the lighting is shit, then you might show it. It might be in your portfolio, but it's not going to be the one you lead with. It's not going to be the home run
Possible.
because it's not going to satisfy on the visual level.
I don't know. Like I'm trying to, look, I can light anything. I'm trying to get to a space where I did this whole thing feels good let's go for years when I was at Bernstein and Julie, and I'm really trying to get back to that. That's my happy place where it's really a bunch of imperfect sort of moments. People's heads are cut off and it looks like flash on camera photography, but I've shot a bunch of liquor campaigns with this sort of like real photos feel, but it's real because it's imperfect,
Yeah, but
and I think I
it's imperfect. It challenges conventions, but you're still choosing pictures that work. They work counterintuitively, but visually they still work.
I think that the only thing I'm trying to say is, for me, as someone who I consider myself really proficient at lighting, I think I can light anything.
Yeah,
And a lot of photographers have like lighting people or whatever, but like all good, no hate. But I really like lighting shit. But to break it down to sort of that Salacuse quote level where it's like lighting's going to be super simple. Let's get some
sure.
moments.
No, totally.
Uh,
But simple and bad are different. Like
yes,
obviously I don't know the situation. And maybe Matt had told something to the assistant of like, we're going for X, Y, and Z, and it was no longer that. And so the assistant was doing their job and calling that out, right? So, but maybe the lighting was more simple now, and so that a great moment would still work. But maybe the lighting was now bad. If it was bad lighting, it was the ratio wasn't right. It
right,
just
right.
then
I
the
mean,
shots were
on some level, bad is subjective. Like I think
sure.
that for me, this particular story with Salacuse, who is like my brother, my best friend, I think that you can see that ethos in his photos.
Yeah, totally,
You know what I
100%.
mean? Like, and I love that about his work, where it's like, let's just get the fucking moment,
I
you know?
guess the reason why I'm being a stickler for this is that for me, I think that as much as it's hard to get those sort of beautiful accident moments, I think in a way I find that easier than I do making visually dynamic pictures.
Okay.
So I think a lot about pictures really working visually on the front end. And I'm always looking for like how do we pop the color? How do
Right.
we make the lighting really dynamic but still simple? Like all those things that make a picture like just like cool to look at. That's the harder part for me. And so for me, like I'm really front loading all that because the stuff of getting a moment that feels like real and grounded and kind of like exciting and like kind of like connects. As much as that's hard, that's kind of easier for me. Like I have a more of an instinct for that, I think, than for lining up those really like exciting visual shots.
But when it's
Yeah,
happening in front of you,
yeah,
the calculations and all that stuff,
yeah.
if it's happening, I'm taking the picture. If it's
Of
happening
course.
right now,
See, that's why, like, see, my when I was younger and I was sort of just trying to figure out this whole portrait game or whatever, my thing was I was just trying to simplify it, and I was like, good background, good lighting. Now let's shoot the fuck out of it and just see what happens. And so, but I needed that good background, good lighting, and that good background could just be like a wall.
and that was
And good
younger. That
lighting,
was younger Chris Buck. That's not current Chris Buck.
well, but it's still part of it in the sense that, like when you just said, hey, when it's on, I'm just pushing that button. Hell yeah, I'm in. And I'm like doing anything I can to nudge that thing to keep it going, right? I'm the same way, but that's why I need to be thinking about, is the lighting there? Does the background work?
Right.
Because when those moments start happening, I need that to be in a cool looking space
Right.
or in the lighting that has just enough going on to keep it interesting.
And but you
Because that's
trust
where
yourself.
those home run, like, like every year I might get 1 to 3 pictures that are like, like at the end of the year, I'm like, that's great. Like that's one of my best pictures of the year. It just has that balance of being a moment, but the visuals really work. It just feels like just perfectly crafted for being authentic, but also like magnetic.
Sure.
But so I really need like I need to really think about the background and the lighting before and make sure that because like the best job we got was I think was you sitting on the steps at the end, and I tried a few different things in that space before we got to that shot, and then we just got it kind of like a nice moment there where your feet were lined up nice and you did something with your hands, and I'm like, just look at me and do this thing, and that's when we got that shot. But that environment and that lighting all really worked first, right? Because
Right.
it was sort of like I love these shots that are
Right.
like really busy but somehow still organized,
No,
like,
of course.
and that really worked. And so, but you see, like I moved my camera 3 or 4 times before I locked into that spot. I had you move a couple times before we got that shot, and so it wasn't like you just sat down and we got it.
Right.
But we were kind of moving through it and worked through it. And we even did something after that that was also interesting. Remember, I asked you to do your own take on it,
Right.
and you kind of like lean back.
That was an interesting moment. Is
Yeah, that
that
was
something?
cool.
Is that a regular thing that you do? Hey, what's your take on this? What's your
I'm not.
take on this particular photo we did?
Sometimes I do it. I mean, it's very dangerous because, well, look, you're a visual artist, so I think you have more of an intuitive sense of what will work. Whereas I think that, obviously you work with portraits, you kind of have a sense of what will work and what won't work. Most people, like, they just don't understand that relationship between, the framing and the camera and the lighting and all that you do. So I will ask people, but I asked at the end after I already had it.
Right.
Like,
Well,
I didn't do it at
that's
the
I
beginning.
did notice that. It's sort of like, okay, what else can I get out of this? What do you
Yeah,
think? Kind of
right.
thing.
Yeah.
So I sensed that. I thought it was interesting. I thought that I mean, I knew what you were doing, but I think that a lot of people would be like, "Oh, well, this photographer trusts me." And then you know, look, I think that if that shot after you said that was mind blowing, we would have been there for 45 more minutes. Like, I think that you would have been like, oh, like, let's
Mm,
maybe not
yeah,
45, but I think that if there was
right,
something there
right.
that
Well,
was
the
worth
last shot is actually
pursuing,
really good, but the problem with it is, in a way, it goes back to what we were talking about at the beginning, is that it's there's not enough of you in it. It's almost oddly enough, it's too me because you're hidden by
right,
your arm, and so you can't see you. And also in the shot I did pick, your body language and your expression is Kareem Black enough
right.
that it feels like it's bringing something to the picture, a dynamicism of personality that the other picture is almost too inert. And like people would look at it and say that's so Chris Buck, but they may not say it's so Kareem Black in a weird way, even though it was what you chose to do. it, you're kind of hiding yourself a bit, just like literally practically speaking, you're hiding
Sure.
yourself, so there's less of you. And so I think that in a way too, like what's nice about the pose I picked is that it has it brings more of you to the fore. And I recognize just intuitively, I didn't think about it. I just recognize, oh, this is good. Because this is really, it's a nice mix of me and Kareem.
Yeah,
Like
no, that
the
was, it was,
framing is me, the lighting is me, but the pose is you. And that really brought something exciting to that
it
moment.
was an interesting, yeah, it was an interesting moment being asked that. I think that that's another thing that I might take away from our shoot, where it's like, what do you think about this? Like, what's your take on this? And I think that that's one of those moments where the subject might show a little bit of their cards about like how they're feeling about the shoot
Yeah.
happening,
Yeah.
what kind of photographer they think you are. I mean, I'm not sure if that pose would have come to my mind if I wasn't being photographed by Chris Buck, and
Yeah.
based on things that have done before. Again,
Totally.
Abaddon,
Totally.
Control, that whole thing.
So let me ask you a question. What would a, you, do you think I should have asked you that earlier, like in an earlier setup?
As far as what's my take on this?
Like, yeah, like if you like, what would be your twist on this?
No, I think that if you had asked me earlier, okay, so now I'm putting in the context as two other, like me being the photographer and me asking the model, hey, what do you want to do halfway through the shoot?
Yeah,
And I know in that particular situation, I'm giving up too much power here. You know,
yeah,
I I there's an art which you know all about where it's like, that's a great idea that you have. Like, yeah, we could totally do that, and then you end up either never doing it or maybe you do a little bit of it and then
sure,
move on. I think that it's imperative to be like, all that stuff comes later. All that stuff comes later, I think, when you start
yeah,
to I love collaboration. I do love that, but I do think that very quickly there can be too many cooks in the kitchen.
yeah. Well, also remember, I think early on in the shoot, you asked me, "Do you want any input from me?" And I said, "No. I need to work it out. I need to figure out for myself." Because you said, like, I intuitively, I'm looking around, I'm seeing opportunities. Do you want to hear about any of this? And I was like, no. I need to figure out my own
Yeah.
path first.
Yeah.
I think
No,
that really makes a lot of sense,
I
like,
think that what I was trying to do, I mean, I don't remember that exact wording. I think that what I was trying to do was sort of like, this happens in this apartment at this time, maybe, hey, check out this corner or whatever. But
yeah,
as a general statement, my mission statement was, let me try to be a good model, which means
right.
sort of a subordinate
Yeah.
by definition. I don't have the camera.
But one thing I do want to say is that, we've talked a lot about, the photographer having a sense of control on set. I think that to be clear, like, this is not really like about like dominance or about like being predatory in a negative way.
Right.
It's about like taking responsibility for the shoot and for the portrait, and in a way that is consensual, that
Yeah,
that
yeah, of course.
the subject, really wants that. They want you to show like I got this. You're in good hands.
I appreciate you stating that fact for legal reasons. So like when this shit comes up in court, like we're all protected. But no, I hear you. Yes, absolutely. We don't want anybody to do anything that they don't want to do. But I do
Right,
think that on the shoot there is a photographer and there is a makeup artist. The makeup artist is not the photographer.
right.
The wardrobe artist is not a photographer. And it's like there is sort of it's a photographer's shoot,
Yes.
and
Right.
I think
Because in
that's
the end,
important.
because when the picture, it's like we can all have a party and have a great time and all throw in ideas, but in the end, when the pictures are bad, they're not going to turn to the makeup artist
That's
and say what
correct.
happened.
That's correct. It's always it's always our fault. That's why we get paid what we get paid. And I
Yes.
think that it's a captain of a ship. You know,
Totally.
the captain is
Yeah.
responsible for all the people below him
I,
or
yeah,
her.
that's an analogy I make all the time. And I say, even on an ad shoot, when there's like two or three hierarchies above me on set, you might own the boat, but I'm still the captain.
Sure.
So you can say, we need to take this ship back to port, and I will take it back to port safely. But you could tell me what you want the boat to do, and I will follow instructions,
Right.
but I will not do things that are like bad
For the boat.
captaining or whatever.
Right.
Like I'm still the captain of the
You're
ship.
not going to
Even,
destroy the boat.
right. Like I'm not gonna do things that are like unethical or unsafe
Right.
or like go against my principles because I'm the captain of the
Also,
ship.
I think that, like photo shoots aren't a democracy. Like
Yes.
they aren't. I don't think that a photo shoot could function in that way. I mean, like photo shoots would take weeks.
Yes.
If everybody's input sort of was acknowledged and examined and played out.
Hey, I gotta get going.
What's that?
I have to go. I have to
Oh
go buy
God.
groceries.
Oh yeah, that's right. You have the family life.
Yes. This has been awesome. I hope that it's everything you wanted.
Wait, hold on.
Um,
1 second. I want to make sure
okay.
that there's not anything pertinent that
Okay.
I'm missing. You know what? We can talk about what you think people will say at your funeral later.
Oh God.
On the next one, we can talk about impressions, the idea. Why do you make this work? Oh, it's like we kind of covered that. You know what? Here's what I would say. Let's do this again. Not maybe not the photo shoot part, but the talking part. I find you super interesting to speak to. Your process. I'm a weird guy. You're a weird guy. I liked seeing your process. I liked experiencing it, and I think that whoever watches this, I think I got like 12 followers. I think that maybe 9 of them will like it. So let's
Awesome. That's a very high ratio.
that I'm optimistic. Um, I would love to do this again. I think that
Right.
photographers talking to photographers photographing photographers, it's just interesting. You
Yeah.
get to pick somebody's brain.
Well, I appreciate you doing it. You're a great subject, and I'm interested to see which pictures come to the fore. Maybe like when we revisit this in 5 years. Like which of the pictures in the session, maybe different ones will speak to us then.
Sure. You know what? I actually held off posting until we had this conversation. Just maybe it would provide some more
Hmm.
context for me. I'm gonna post today, and yeah, I'm interested to hear what people have to say. Yo, thanks for your time. I really appreciate it. Do your family
Sure.
thing. I'm
And
going
when you
to.
go to edit the video, if you need other pictures, like the one where I said, "Hey, what do you want to do here?" Like I could give you that photo to put in the frame.
Okay, cool. I mean,
So let me know.
I figured that I don't. I mean, this is probably going to be cut out, but I figured that our recordings are virtually identical.
Yeah.
What are you planning to do with yours? I am planning to put mine on YouTube.
I mean, I'm gonna probably build a blog post out of some of the text from it, like quoting both of us or something. I don't know.
I think it's interesting, man. Like, if people are as nerdy as I am, I remember I used to go to Kwaku Alston's house, and all we used to do was watch, like, at that time, it was like DVDs of like Richard Avedon shoots and just hearing him
Yeah,
talk and going through
yeah,
his
yeah,
process. And I think that people would be interested in this. I don't know.
totally. I mean, there's definitely that aspect of like you need to do it a bit before you learn. Like when you just read about what photographers do, there's not enough context. You need to like you need to do it a bit to know kind of what questions to ask. Hey, look, I gotta run because my wife's gonna walk in
Hey,
here and be like,
do your thing.
"Release."
I don't want to get you in the doghouse. I'll talk to you in a little
Okay.
bit.
All right, my friend.
Thank you very
Have a great
much.
day. Bye bye.
Bye.